The following podcast is created and sponsored by High Beam Ministry.
Wait. Did that waitress listen to a word I said? Let me ask you something. How hard is your job? How intelligent do you have to be to take a food order?
You're at the back of the line.
I recognize that.
Cut it out or you're out of here.
You can't kick me out.
You know what? You're really invading my ear space.
Look, I'm a frequent coffee drinker. I'm part of the club. I have a card.
Zip it there, Sporty Spice.
How's everybody doing over here?
I hate to be a pain. I asked for no onions on my bourbon steak.
Oh, I am so sorry. I thought you asked for onions.
Maybe don't interrupt me.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Yeah, well, I think you did mean to, and I also think that you meant to put the onions on my steak.
Grandfather, can't we resolve this conflict without anger?
No, you are so dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
You are so stupid.
Welcome to the Erzatz Coffee Shop. This is Jay, your Truth Barista, and I'm serving up a steamy cup of God's truth for the average Joe. You can catch me and this podcast on my websites, truthbarista.com, all one word, truthbarista.com, and highbeamministry.com. That's HIGHBEAM ministry.com, as in car high beam. We're shining the light of God's truth on the road ahead.
You know, I just don't believe how stupid some people could be.
I mean, what's wrong with you?
You talk about having a community of idiots. People are just nuts.
Okay,
I could kill them all.
Whoa. Okay, amazing, Larry. Let me just ask you a question. Did you have one of those mornings? Did you have some of those customers in here again?
I had them all morning long.
Oh, yeah.
But what is it about, when we say words like that? I just want to kill some of them.
Whoa. Are you serious?
Well, no, but just rather put them out of your sight. You just don't want to deal with them.
Okay, so you don't want to kill somebody, but yet you're going to sit there and talk to me and call them idiots and morons and those kind of things.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. Have you ever been convicted of murder?
No, thank God.
Okay, well, obviously because you're standing here with me. But you know something of what you just shared to me really fits into our series here that we're going through on the 10 Commandments. Based on what you said, I think you could be convicted of murder.
Seriously?
Seriously. You want to hear about it?
Oh, I don't know if I want to.
I know. I didn't want to hear it either, because as I started going through the 10 Commandments and I hit this one, this really began to rattle my cage, because I realized, man, I'm murdering people right and left some days.
It is interesting, though. We did the 4 that had to do with God, right? Our relationship with God. And then we did the 5th one that had to do with our parents and honoring them. And now we're going to get into what? Sort of the relationship with other people?
Exactly. The first 4 specifically deal with God. 6 through 10 specifically deals with people. And remember, when we talked about parents, it's kind of like it's the pivot point, because they represent God to us. Our parents, as we grow up, represent God to us. But on the other hand, how we treat our parents teaches us how to treat the rest of society. So it really is that cool pivot point. But now we're on the second tablet, and the top one at the second tablet is number 6, thou shalt not murder.
Ooh, boy.
Okay, so the question, though, is, by the way, what does your Bible say is instead of thou shalt not murder?
Oh, I think kill.
Okay. The question is, do you think there's a difference?
I think there is.
Okay.
I think murder is, sort of like an intentional wanting to kill somebody for whatever reason. And killing, I think, has to do, and this is just my opinion, and I don't know if this is right, but killing has to do with protecting yourself or coming against an enemy.
Okay, but if somebody is coming at me and I'm using self-defense, am I not intentionally killing that person? Now you're kind of mushing the two things there.
Okay. Well, you're killing them, yes, but I didn't go out of my way to think I'm going to go kill so-and-so because they did something to my lawn.
Okay. Let's kind of parse some words here, because this is very important to understanding this commandment. In some Bible translations, it says, you shall not kill. In others, it says, you shall not murder. I love Dennis Prager's take on this on YouTube, and everybody should go to Dennis Prager's 10 Commandments series and go through this, because he has great insights.
Is murder wrong? Is it evil? Nearly everyone would answer yes. But now I will pose a much harder question. How do you know? I'm sure you think murder is wrong, but how do you know? If I asked you how you know that the earth is round, you would show me photographs from outer space or offer me measurable data. But what photographs could you show? What measurements could you provide that prove that murder or rape or theft is wrong? The fact is, you can't. There are scientific facts, but without God, there are no moral facts. In a secular world, there can only be opinions about morality. Judeo-Christian values are predicated on the existence of a God of morality. In other words, only if there is a God who says murder is murder wrong. Otherwise, all morality is opinion.
This was my takeaway as I was studying this one here. He says, regarding killing, there are 3 points. Killing is taking any life. Number 2, he says it's taking human life deliberately or by accident. And killing in the Hebrew refers to taking human life legally or illegally, morally or immorally. So killing is kind of the broad category of taking a life, right?
Right.
But murder is different. There's a specific word, Hebrew word for murder, which means wrongful killing. That is an unlawful or illegal or immoral taking of a life. See, the really important part of that one to focus on is it's a killing that breaks God's law, not right.
Well, you've really intrigued my attention here because are there things that the Bible says you can kill for?
Right. You can kill for a just war. You can kill for self-defense, and you can kill in capital punishment. There are designated authorities. God gives that right to take a life. I think one of the things that the rabbis have said when they've been reading this subject and seeing death and capital punishment in the Bible, he says, there comes a point when a person has committed a crime that's so terrible they have surrendered their right to live. Isn't that fascinating?
Wow.
And so it's not the taking of a life. In that case, it's you surrender your life because of what you did. But that's kind of getting away from the 10 Commandments here. But that's an interesting distinction.
It is a distinction that way, yes.
Okay, so really killing versus murder. Killing is in general, but what God is getting at, that word in the commandment is murder, not kill. So God is saying you shall not participate in the illegal or immoral taking of a human life. And so let me ask you a question. Why is murder wrong?
I've always thought it's wrong because I don't have a right to take another life because, number one, I don't have any authority over that other person. That person belongs to God, not me.
Exactly. And let me expand on that one. God alone gives life. Because God is the creator, he reserves the right to be the only one to take life or to delegate another person or party to take a life, as in capital punishment.
Well, that's where people mistake capital punishment as being so evil because it is really, they've done something so egregious that they have forfeited their life. I never thought of that before like that.
Yep. So that's a very important distinction. And by the way, just when we're talking about capital punishment, I am all in favor of proper capital punishment, but you better have a open and shut case. It has to be absolutely clear. The Bible basically says this person has to have 2 witnesses. In other words, there can't be any doubt. There cannot
ambiguity.
Be a shadow of a doubt.
Right.
Then I think it's legitimate. If there's any doubt that person should be locked up for life, that's a way of surrendering your life without actually suffering the punishment. Let me ask you a question. When did murder start?
Well, that's a good question. I think it started with Cain and Abel, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, you're absolutely right. Biblically, historically speaking, that's when murder started. And the question is, why did Cain murder Abel? Why was it a part of the equation?
Well, I think it was out of pride and it was out of selfishness, but I think he was just angry at his brother for things that he wasn't getting acknowledged for.
Let me throw you something here.
Okay.
Okay.
Going to throw me a bone.
I'm going to throw you a bone here.
All right.
Throw me a bone here. Adam and Eve walked with God, right?
Yes, they did.
So they saw God in his image. And because they were created in his image, I propose that they were able to recognize God's image in one another. However, by the time Cain and Abel came along, they were already out of the garden. Cain and Abel never saw God, so they never recognized his image. Why is it so easy for Cain to kill Abel? Because he's not recognizing God's image and the sacredness of God's image in the other person. It's just that other person. Right. And when you get to the point of fallen nature where I am my own God, well, now I reserve the right to take a life, which I'm not allowed to take. I'm stepping into God's place. You want to talk about narcissism? Stepping into God's place really is narcissism.
Yeah, that's the total end result of that. But, what Cain did to Abel was really cheapening life.
Right. If we hold life as the most precious thing that God has given humanity, then we should protect all forms of life as best as we can. But even doing that, we have to be careful because we can actually go too far and protect something that should not be protected, as in the case of a capital punishment or a crime.
When I think of cheapening life, I think of Adolf Hitler. He cheapened the life of Jews as if to be like sort of sewer rats, or even going back to slavery days in America and other parts of the world. There was a teaching, even within the church in some segregated areas, that black people just didn't have souls. They weren't human.
Exactly.
And today we cheapen life in the womb, as if to say that isn't a person, it's a fetus or a hunk of flesh.
Exactly. Actually, the two things, cheapening of human life and depersonalizing a person, go hand in glove, because when you cheapen human life, then all of a sudden it becomes easier to take human life. You've set the foundation for it. As a matter of fact, when you look at this, I like what the rabbis have said. Let me pull out this. I just found this in this. It's a book. It's a commentary on the law here, and it's really cool. The rabbi said one observation is that the first command on the second tablet, don't murder, is like the first command, faith in God. Someone who believes in the creator and sustainer of human life will not commit murder. It is not coincidental that the modern world's accelerating loss of faith has been accompanied by an increasing cheapness of human life. Think of history now. Back in the 60s, it was this whole throw out God, reject God, etc., etc. But what followed after that? Early 1970s, abortion became legal. In the 80s and 90s, what was the fight? Assisted suicide and euthanasia. In the 2000s, we passed the millennium. What's going on? They're harvesting aborted babies for stem cell research and trafficking these body parts for research labs. You throw out God, and the natural inclination is to cheapen life, to depersonalize it, so now it becomes a commodity.
For just a moment, I want your comment on terrorism. Islamic terrorists, they have cheapened life to drive planes into buildings and cars down sidewalks and all the other things. Mm-hmm. They just do not see life as valuable. But is that a tendency of Islam?
This is a very tough topic and something that is very difficult to address. But within Islam in general, it means submission. You will submit. You will submit to their God. And when you read Muhammad's writings, both in the first writings and the restated writings, as they call it, you begin to see a cheapening of human life. It's only on our side, because we follow this God, is life valuable, but everybody else, life is not valuable. And so it's if you find a Jew and a Christian hiding behind, or a Jew hiding behind a rock or a tree, it'll say, come and strike the Jew on the neck here. Islam is about submission. It's not about lifting up, so to speak, human life. You judge a tree by its fruit. Now, there are many peace-loving Muslims out there, and that's fine. But you've noticed when Islam goes off the chain and it goes to its egregious form, its extreme form, what manifests? Attacks against human life. Yet you look at Christianity and you look at Judaism, and what is it? It is an affirmation of human life. All you have to do is read the Jewish and the Christian scriptures. And even though God does command life to be taken, it's because God says it's okay for righteous reasons. So, for example, when the Jews were coming into Canaan, he didn't say, just wipe out the Canaanites and make yourself some room. He said, do not touch your neighbors. He says, you shall get rid of those Canaanites because their sin against me, which was, and you read about it, it is sacrificing children in a fire and murder and unjust and, just horrible things. He goes, that I'm using you in a sense, Israel, as my executioner against the Amorites, specifically in the court of my law. So some people would say, well, doesn't your God promote the taking of life? Well, yeah, but for righteous reasons and just reasons.
And that's where the difference is. Speaking about the difference, we've got people coming in now on a kind of a mid-morning coffee rush, and they want to be uplifted.
Yeah, well, let's break from this and let's go get some caffeine too.
Oh my gosh, this Truth Barista is really great. I have learned so much from him, so I have been inviting more of my friends to join me in coming here to the coffee shop.
Thank you for joining us today. In today's world, we need to know more about life than what we are fed through our normal channels of communication. Even in many of our churches, we are not hearing the whole truth about God and His Word. Pastors today are often afraid to address the themes in culture that might get them to be targeted by the cancel culture. Congregations are divided on the issues, and it makes a pastor's job more difficult to address those spiritual areas that might divide the church. This was one of the reasons the Truth Barista came into existence. We wanted to provide a message without any strings attached or be subjected to division in the church. We want to bring you a strong biblical message that doesn't come with limitations or restrictions on what can be said. No one wants to have information withheld from them, right? We all want to know the truth. The Truth Barista is a podcast that brings you truth based on God's Word, the Bible. We hope that you'll become a regular listener and be informed on the truth concerning the issues of our day. Join the RSS family by providing your email address on our website, and you'll be sent a link every time a new podcast comes out. Our website is highbeamministry.com. That's highbeamministry.com.
This desensitization of what life really is. Talk to us more about that.
Okay, once you cheapen human life by getting rid of God, now you get rid of God's image in the other person, and we begin to depersonalize them. And you brought up the great examples. Slavery depersonalized people back in the 1860s. I mean, we dealt with that as a society. They said black people were kind of a person or a part of a person or had no soul. But you saw it in the Holocaust. The proposal that we are the Ubermensch, the superhumans, that now took everybody else down to a normal level. And then on the other end of the spectrum, they depersonalized the Jewish people, and that led to atrocities beyond comprehension. And in fact, today, slavery and this type of depersonalization is widespread around the world. And in fact, Jesus is saying because of Torahlessness or lawlessness in the end times, you're going to see this kind of thing happening on a much broader scale.
Boy, and he's so right. Human trafficking is becoming number one amongst the drug cartels as far as making money.
Right, and in a sense, that's murder because you're taking a human life, a person's ability to determine what they're going to do with their lives, and you're taking it away from them. Slavery is a form, if you will, of murder.
Well, look at Harvey Weinstein and all of the celebrities and politicians now that are being accused of sexual harassment. That's really kind of murdering your person, too, because you're depersonalizing them.
And you're destroying their lives.
Yeah, you can do anything you want to them because they're female.
So
and
suddenly
male.
you're seeing now this commandment has a far greater application than just murdering somebody because you're hurt or whatever it is. Yeah, but let's talk about this. What really propels such murderous activities, right? And I'll just basically lay it out there. Personal hurt is often at the core of what motivates murder. Personal hurts cloud our view of God in one another, and it even makes us justify, it's a way we justify, striking out at them and ultimately committing. How many crimes of passion have taken place because somebody claims they've been hurt by their spouse or their loved one or somebody else? You know, even in the political discourse, you know, people will go attack another person. I mean, even in the recent past, Senator Rand Paul was attacked by his neighbor. Now, people are going, oh, it was a dispute over grass clippings or landscaping. No, I would like to give that the benefit of the doubt, but a rational person wouldn't go and attack another person and break 6 ribs out of dandelions in a lawn or something like that. There is something else at play there.
There is. Somebody was hurt in that relationship.
So when someone slights us, even kind of rips us a little bit, that creates a hurt in us, and from there we entertain the idea of hurting back, and that comes down to the principle, hurt people. And that's a good way to handle it is when somebody, it should prompt us to go, I kind of wonder what's in them that's hurting so bad, and we can take an attack against us as an opportunity to minister to the other person.
Well, now that's a great perspective, but you really have to have the Lord in you to kind of come to that conclusion, though, right?
Yeah. You have to really be prepared in your mind to be able to meet that. So, hey, practice it so it becomes an automatic response.
Right. So Cain's question was, am I my brother's keeper? What would you say to that?
Yeah, the answer is simple. It's yes. You are your brother's keeper. We are to guard one another's lives, whether it's their physical life or the various aspects that contribute to their life. And it could be their livelihood, their reputation, their feelings. You see, we attack someone, and it becomes easy to do it if we remove responsibility for that other person. That's what Cain is pulling on God, and God's not letting him get away with it.
Correct. But, most of us listening today are probably saying, well, this doesn't really apply to me because I've never killed anybody. I probably will never kill anybody. But there are other areas of murder that I think we're all guilty of.
So you're picking up on that subtlety thing we were talking about before, right? Okay, well, let's get into it. Well, some of the rabbis said that because this is such an obvious commandment, there must be something under the surface. And what they said was that if you were to cause someone significant embarrassment, or if you failed to provide food or safety to travelers, or you caused somebody to lose their job, right, through unfair business practices, or you refuse to take a stand when your wisdom is needed, that is akin to murder because it affects the other person's life. And Jesus picks the same thing up. Because Jesus said, you have heard it said, you shall not murder. Well, let me tell you something about that. And Jesus goes on to say, bad-mouthing people is regarded as murder.
I'm so guilty of that.
Okay, angry words can actually equal murder. And he uses the word raka in there, raka. And if you call somebody raka, which means fool, it actually is a word that means empty or vain, or it's a word of contempt. And it basically denotes somebody who is senseless, stupid, shallow brains.
Oh, shut up, you moron! You are an idiot!
What you're saying is that when we first started this study, I was calling people morons and idiots. I mean, are you...
Yeah, Jesus is saying, yeah, amazing, Larry, that's tantamount to murder. And I love what the Barnes notes have on this kind of stuff. Okay, I've got this in the margin of my Bible here. It says, Jesus teaches here that to use such words is a violation of the spirit of the sixth commandment, and if indulged, may lead to a more open and awful breaking of that law. Children should learn that to use such words is highly offensive to God, for we must give an account for every idle word we speak on the day of judgment. So if you really want to kind of paraphrase what Jesus said in Matthew here, he's saying this. From Mount Sinai up to this point, you've been taught that the sixth commandment about murder is broken only by someone who unlawfully takes a life. Yeah, I get that, right? A perpetrator the courts properly pass judgment on. But I'm telling you this. It's broken by causeless anger, which is budding hatred, and murder is hatred's offspring. And if you are judged by the human courts for saying you idiot, which you could in those days, how much more will you be judged by the one who not only weighs your words, but takes your heart's thoughts and intentions into account?
Wow.
So really, what it comes down to is, amazing, Larry, murder starts in the heart. Proverbs says, as a man thinks in his heart, so he is. So what starts inside manifests outside. So Jesus is reinforcing this when he takes the game to the Pharisees of his day and he condemns their unrighteous ways. He's going, and I'll listen to these words, you brood of vipers. Now, is that definition of character or defamation of character? I don't know. Play around with that one a little bit. How can you who are evil say anything good? For out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. The good man brings good things out of the good stored up in him. The evil man brings evil things out of the evil stored up in him. Now, this goes back to the thing we said about Islam, okay? If a Christian has a good heart, good things should come out of him. You can call yourself a Christian, but if bad things are coming out of your heart, you're either not a Christian and truly born again, or you got a lot of work to do, okay? So I'm throwing that on the Christians, not on the Muslims right here, but you can tell from, as we said before with Islam, what's in the heart? What's at the basis of the faith, okay? So let's move on. Words can kill. Proverbs 18:21 says, "The tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit."
Boy, I can't tell you how many things I have said that have come back to haunt me many years later. And I've tried to defend myself for saying such things, but you really can't.
Yeah.
You're caught.
Yeah. Well, let me go through some of the things quickly here that can be tantamount to murder if we follow this line of reasoning Jesus gives us. Verbal abuse is insults, derision, humiliating somebody, name-calling, telling embarrassing stories on them. That's a form of murder.
Wow.
Sarcasm. This is knifing somebody verbally from the front.
I'm guilty.
Okay. Sarcasm comes from two words that means flesh and creating a chasm, sarx chasm, which means to tear somebody's flesh. So when you're ripping into somebody, you're murdering someone's feelings and self-worth with sneering or cutting remarks. Here's another one. Slander and gossip are a knife not to the front, but they're knives to the back because it usually comes in from behind the person. Okay, slander is a false or defamatory statement or report about somebody. Gossip is a truth you're not supposed to share. Both of them are back verbal attacks. Okay, I love what Shakespeare writes, one of my favorite verses. "Who steals my purse steals trash, but he that fetches from me my good name robs me of that which enriches him not and makes me poor indeed."
But that is so common in everything we look at today. The media, everybody's cutting somebody down through whether it's verbal abuse or sarcasm, slander, gossip. I mean, it is rampant.
Yeah, I mean, think of this. Let's just play with gossip. Everybody think, well, gossip, that's nothing. You can participate. Oh, no. Gossip is murdering somebody's dignity or their self-respect, right? Now, think of it in this way. God equates gossip and slander with endangering a neighbor's life. Okay? So even listening to gossip is like standing by while somebody else is getting knifed. And now let's take it a little bit deeper. You go shopping, right? Do you do the grocery shopping in your house?
I do some of it, yes.
Okay. Ever go by the newsstands and you see the National Enquirer?
Oh, yes, all the time.
Well, gossip magazines in that checkout line, or gossip television, TMZ, and all that crap.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's masquerading as entertainment, but they are justifying their gossip because, well, you know, they're celebrities. Notice they call them celebrities and not people. They've depersonalized them.
So
with
it's
the
okay.
title. So it's okay.
Yeah.
You know, hey, they're rich, or hey, they're famous, or hey, they're political.
Hey, they
or,
can take it.
Hey, if they didn't like it, then get out of the arena. No, they're people in an arena in politics or entertainment. They deserve the same respect that we all deserve.
Well, Christians sometimes can be guilty of gossip, too, in their prayer lives.
You ever been to a prayer meeting where it's like, well, you know, we really need to pray for sister so-and-so because she's getting a divorce, or, you know, yada, yada. Yeah, in our prayer requests, we have to be very careful we don't slip into sanctified gossip. And how do you stop gossip, by the way? Well, when somebody pulls your ear and says, you know, I shouldn't tell you this, but at that point, you need to say this. Shut up! Okay, I'm being facetious there, but really, better the person who wants to tell you the gossip, better their embarrassment than sinning before God. And when we're talking about someone, we have to assume that what we say to them is going to get back to them.
Absolutely.
Okay, so really, don't say to the other person, Amazing Larry, what you don't have the guts to say directly to them, right?
I say that all the time. People put it in emails or on Facebook, and it just comes back to haunt you.
Oh, you know, speaking of Facebook. Okay, you want to talk about carnage? Okay, what is it about the internet that causes people to feel it's okay to put up the most horrendous and vicious things they would never say to another person's face, right? I'll tell you where it comes from. Anonymity.
That's exactly right.
Yep. Cyber distance. Those two things seem to give us this insane sense of protection and permission to act horribly. Okay, but many of us have these profile pictures where we look really nice, or we have the pictures on our Facebook. Praise Jesus. You know, all that stuff. And then we go and we troll somebody on social network. Come on, right? And by the way, anonymity and cyber distance helps us to depersonalize the person. We just see their statement. But it gives us carte blanche to go rip them. Facebook and the social networking sites are a killing field. From what I've seen, and done, they should be labeled unsocial network sites, right? By the way, you know how you start an argument on Facebook?
State an opinion.
Yeah, and then you just wait, and people will start trolling you, right? Sad to say, most of the abuse that's been really harsh has come from my fellow Christians. So this is my word that I share to most Christians is,
I'm going to say 2 words to you right now. I want you to listen to them very, very carefully. Then I want you to take them out of the office with you and incorporate them into your life. You ready? Okay, here they are. Stop it!
This is out there for everybody to see, and once it gets out into cyberspace, you're never going to get it back. It's like you've often said to me, oh, I really wanted to cuss that person out or say something snarky to them, and I kept saying, if we do that, those words get past our lips, they're never coming back, right? And think of the effect of that person bleeding from our comment for the rest of their lives.
Well, it is a form of murder.
Yeah. So really, if we want to get down to it, we really have to give the other person a benefit of the doubt. We have to remember the things that we say, the things that we do, we really have to guard their reputation. We have to guard their lives, and it's all aspects of their lives, their feelings, their thoughts, their emotions, their livelihoods, their reputation. That's a big one.
Well, I think the Holy Spirit was given to us to be our personal editor long before it gets out of the creation stage in the mind or heart, right?
Yeah. We have to get to the point where we're sensitive enough to the Holy Spirit that just as that word is coming out of our mouth, he can tap us hard on the shoulder and it stops at our teeth before it goes any farther. And we need to just chew those words and swallow them.
Truth Barista, once again, boy, this has been great.
I know. Well, let's try the rest of this afternoon to work this out.
Yeah, not to murder anybody with our words or thoughts.
Yeah, really.
The Bible teaches that nothing will ever change until the heart changes. The only way the heart changes is when God shows up and makes that change. When God is involved in a person's life, anything is possible. Thanks for joining us.
This is Jay, your Truth Barista. Thanks for listening to the Truth Barista podcast. The best way to find out when a new podcast drops is through RSS feed. Go to our website, look for the RSS button, press it, and then enter your email. You'll be notified when a new podcast drops. Thanks for listening.